Welcome to the Football Breakdown. It's the Fantasy EFL preview show for Game Week 12. I'm Matthew South.
And I'm Ian Cooper.
Yes, hello, welcome everybody. Game Week 12 is underway as we speak. It's a championship double game week though, so that's where our focus is going to be this week. Ian, how are you doing?
Yeah, really good. Thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. Can't complain apart from one major mishap we've both made in being busy this week is I haven't cleared my team and it's gone past 8 o'clock. Mason Burstow and Bolton have kicked off. I'm locked in for two things already this week, which is an absolute disaster. And I believe you're also the same.
Yeah, and if things couldn't get any worse, the player that is locked in was my captain from last week. So he's my captain going into a double game week where I was looking at using my max captain chip. So really hurts there. So we're going to have to make some massive ground up here.
Yeah. We're basically handicapped going into this week. We're already on the Bolton 0 points as it stands, and Mason Burstow, it looks like he's having no service in this Bolton Huddersfield game. So he'll be lucky to get 2 points at the moment. It's not looking great on that front. I guess quick one on last week. Apologies. Yeah, like we've kind of said before, both of us have had busy times as of late, and we just ran out of time last week for the pod. It was international break as well. Would have been an interesting one to do. If you were on the socials, try to be upfront and honest as quickly as possible on that front. But apologies again. Ian, did you have a team last week, and if so, how did you get on?
I did have a team, but let's put it this way: no one turned up. I came away with 28 points. My best performing player was Mickey Dimitri with 17 clearances, but they lost 1-0, so got 6 points there. And genuinely, everyone else was awful.
Yeah, that was tough. It was a tough one. Like the average points last week was 24.
Which I somehow beat it, and I feel horrific. So I'm not quite sure how that's come about.
Which says a lot. I'm gonna ask you this because it may not have been a pod week. Did you have a sub-point player last week?
I believe I did. I'm trying to find out which one it would have been. I'm pretty sure. I want to say it was either El Mazzini or Mickey Mellon, but then I got him in at 0.1 and then double checked, and he was over it by the time it kicked off. But I'm pretty sure we've always said that's okay.
Yeah. My guy was 0.2 by the time it kicked off, but he was very much 0.1 when I picked him and wrote about him on the Friday. My 0.1 pick, annoyingly the week we don't do the podcast, I pull out the best 0.1 pick of all time that we've had in the year and a bit of doing this. I had Dom Ballard as my 0.1 pick, and he got a hat trick and reaped in all the rewards. He himself exceeded the average points. He got 26. So I had a great week thanks to him. Nothing else in my team was that good. my centre backs, Barrett scored and Pye got a clean sheet, so I did also get the 9 points there. And then it was a 2-4-4-4, and my team's 3.0 points. So I was very much carried by Ballard to 61 points. But it was top scorer in the league. And lots of green arrows for me. So I was chuffed last week for that pick. I should have captained him, but oh well. I was very big on that. If anyone did see my write up, which I shared on the socials about everything, I was pretty big on Ballard / Connolly going into the week. But obviously for pod rules, I took Ballard as the differential, and it paid off. So yeah, delighted on that front. Can't complain at all. We go back into the championship though, and I feel like these are the weeks I struggle with. It's very double championship heavy. I just can't seem to land the championship picks. I can see when it's League One and League Two focus, I seem to be, exceeding the average in those weeks, but the championship ones I just can't get right. These are the only times I've really been under average so far this season. So I'm kind of hoping for a change of fortune here. Should we just dive straight into it then? I think what we're going to do is similar to last time when it was double championship. We're just going to kind of run through from goalkeeper to forward what exactly we're thinking in each position.
Yeah, almost in a sense. So we're gonna kind of like build a team together, but obviously me and Matt have quite different opinions on certain things that we value. So we won't end up with the same teams, but we're gonna kind of navigate our way around that one.
Yeah, exactly. So best place to start, goalkeeper. Any thoughts on the goalkeeper pick?
Again, nothing really jumps out. I believe every goalkeeper is facing a fixture at home and then away, so there's no sort of leaning towards that one. Um, First of all, should we just point out the keeper that has the most points in the championships this season in Kyle Rushworth? I believe it's 4 clean sheets in a row, and obviously Coventry have been flying as well. Their first game's at home against Blackburn Rovers, so that's definitely a fixture that would jump out. And then Portsmouth away. Okay, Portsmouth are quite good at home, but out of all of the sort of pairings of games to go ahead, this one seems quite favourable.
It does, it does. I think then the one thing that comes into it for me with the Rushworth pick potential is thinking further forward as well. It's like Coventry are so good right now. We're probably going to have 2 Coventry players in our team. Do you want to waste one of? Well, I say waste. Do you want to take one of them as a goalkeeper?
Yes.
And then it's like, but then the other thing is, I always say goalkeeper where you're after the clean sheet for a keeper, and I do think Coventry have the best chances. So if I'm looking at a potential 14-point keeper, and I don't think anyone else is, I think everyone else is going to struggle to get into the double figures. I think that's a big offset compared to whereas like I feel like you could probably find a few defenders who could hit double figures over say like a Bobby Thomas as well. So basically, it's like, do I think Rushworth will outscore the other keepers by as much as Thomas will outscore the other defenders if I were weighing up those two as an option, for example? And then that would leave me a Coventry forward in Haji Wright or Thomas Asante when I got to that area of the pitch spare. So I do like I do like Rushworth, but it's just do I want to take the Coventry hit on him basically?
Is there anyone else that's sort of that you'd make the argument against? Well, not against Rushworth, but also put up a good fight to get into the goalkeeper slot.
Someone who I did have a thought about was so there is one League One and one League Two fixture in midweek next week to make them so we've got 4 non-championship teams on a double,
Yeah.
and one of them is Swindon, and you could get Connor Ripley away to Accrington, who I think are a pretty poor team, and then at home to Notts County, and Swindon are off the back of two straight clean sheets in a row. Then they earlier this season they weren't too big a clean sheet team. In fact, they only had 1 clean sheet in their first like 10 games or so, and then it's been back to back clean sheets recently. But then I'm there like while they're on that trend, it could be somewhere to go. Like I feel like that there's so many goals that happen in the championship that I like if this was a normal week, I would be there. Like, I probably wouldn't go for a championship goalkeeper necessarily. Like, I feel like there's just too much attacking talent in the league. So then I'm there like, well, if I apply that logic here, then really I could look at League Two and maybe go for that route and try and take Connor Ripley instead.
Yeah, nice. I'm about to say important to mention there is other players on the double game week as well, of course, because it really is slim pickings in the championship. Just because there's just been so many teams that are pretty useful in front of goal, and we don't really have any clear outliers defensively, so it's really hard to find multiple options. You could go down the route of looking at teams that have scored the fewest amount of goals per 90 in the championship, but sadly you kind of come full circle where you have Blackburn Rovers who average 0.9 and Portsmouth who average 0.9, both sitting joint second bottom. And then you come back to Rushworth again. So it's really hard to find a different angle that doesn't sort of centre around him if that's the pick you'd want for in the championship.
Yeah, yeah, and like the other options, decent keepers. So Solbrid and Middlesbrough, they've got a game against Ipswich, which just raises a red flag for me potentially in terms of not getting that clean sheet. They were pretty poor against Portsmouth last time out. They're actually, they're fairly solid at home. They have, 2 clean sheets. Sorry, 3 clean sheets in their 4 home games. So that is something to weigh up. But the home game is against Ipswich here, so that's the one I'm probably fearing the most. Daniel Leverson for Preston's another shout, but they've got West Brom and Birmingham, who you just want, like, I don't know, Preston the one where I'm like, do I really want to, like, do I think they're gonna continue to be as good as they've been? The numbers certainly are like, um, the numbers aren't brilliant. They're not very attacking, and I just feel like the more pressure you invite on yourself, the more like you are to concede a goal, and especially against someone like Birmingham, like that fixture there, like there's too much talent in that Birmingham team to just let them keep going at you, which puts me off that clean sheet. And then Kaminsky at home for Charlton against Sheffield Wednesday, that seems like a no-brainer. But then the away game is Ipswich, and it comes back into the Ipswich category. They're scoring goals right now. I don't really want to go against them. So definitely 3 keepers there that you could argue a clean sheet. Certainly 2 of them, certainly Bryn and Kaminsky, you could argue there's a clean sheet in there for them. It's just the other game doesn't weigh it up. So it's like I was saying earlier, if you think in theory that could be 9 points versus the 14 we think Rushworth could get. It's a big difference. It's a big swing. Like, do I think there's other points opportunities in there with saves, or do I think the second clean sheet could come? I mean, potentially. It just really depends how confident I am on that happening.
Yeah, I've only really got one more keeper to contribute, putting forward right before we move on. And I had someone in mind earlier today, and he was in my draft. It was Paul Nardi. He's been back in the QPR lineup in the last 5 games. They're actually unbeaten in those games that he's played in. He's kept 2 clean sheets, and they haven't conceded more than 1 goal while he's been in the side as well. So impressive numbers. They have a home game against Millwall and then away to Swansea. Not 2 really high scoring teams, but Millwall, as we've seen recently, that they can score more than 1 goal in a game as well. Not that should make too much difference, but it's just a factor to be cautious on.
Yeah. Nardi's an interesting one. He was on my radar as well, actually. Yeah, I think he's almost, or his fixtures are almost the perfect reason why I just stay away from the Championship. I think it was Swansea potentially I was looking at as well, and they just have a string of just 1-1 draws, and I'm just there like,
Yeah.
well, that just serves no purpose for anyone. So, we're not getting clean sheets, and we're not getting anything from the opposition to, like, go for them either. So yeah, I think keeper's a tough one. I guess then if you had to put one on your team right now, then who are you saying?
I like taking the gamble with Nardi just because I can keep the Coventry picks for later on, kind of like where you were going with there, and so I feel like you're sort of siding with away from Rushworth.
Yeah, I think I'm very tempted to take Solberg in and back to the fact that Middlesbrough have been a really good team as well. Even if I do think they were quite poor last time, and they just concede the odd goal, and it completely like ruins, just ruin the points. It's just a big swing. Like Solberg is the perfect example actually of a keeper that, is kind of what I always say. He has only achieved bonus points for saves once this season. Like
Yeah.
it's, he has 4 clean sheets, and then bonus points for saves comes in at one game. So that's exactly why I'm trying to chase clean sheets more than saves. And yeah, I feel like Bryn then at least saves the Coventry players for later. So I feel like he's who I'd side with right now. I think in defence, then the first place I want to start is Bobby Thomas for Coventry. He's 11% picked. We're looking at someone with 50 clearances in 9 games, so you're good for the bonus point there. He's a goal threat going forward too. He got 2 assists in his last game in their 5-0 win. He got an assist in the game beforehand. He's like a threat from corners. It both scoring and assisting. He's got 4 assists and a goal overall this season. So you've got someone there who, A, we get the clean sheet from, and B, if you're getting some attacking point from a defender, you're easily hitting double figures. And if if he had his last 2 game weeks repeated in this double game week, you're looking at 20 plus points for a defender. So I feel like he's really hard to ignore.
No, definitely. And kind of sticking on commentary, City players, I keep going back to Milan van Eyck. Just you get the defensive contributions from him, but then you also have his tenacity and talent going forward as well. I get that's not as reliable, which is why he's lower selected. His average in points is lower, but I just feel like the potential is higher. And then talking of a player that's very well picked, I keep coming back to Vestergaard. I think I've mentioned him 3 times now, and I just don't see it. Every time I pick him, it doesn't quite seem to land. And then you go and look at his most previous game against Swansea, and he scored a goal, got a bonus point for clearances and tackles, came up with 11 points. It's just things like that that really attract me, but I feel like I've been stung too many times, so I'd stay clear, but I can see why he's so heavily backed.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think other defender I will bring forward is I'm going to go back to the League Two route. If I'm not taking Ripley in goal, then I want to have a look at Tafazoli in defence. He's just come in for Swindon, played the last 2 games,
Yeah.
9 points and 8 points. I would argue that there's the correlation that he comes in and then they keep back-to-back clean sheets is also very hard to ignore. He's always been that kind of physical, steady defender. Nothing, like nothing too exciting, but he's just no nonsense, does the job, always has done in the Football League. And I feel like there's definitely probably something to be said on the fact that he's come into that back line for Swindon, and they have all of a sudden gone from having quite a leaky defence with an exciting attack to having back-to-back clean sheets. So for me, it's very hard to ignore that. The only thing is he hasn't played the full 90 in either game, and I'd like to say that's just because he's just come into the side. I don't actually know his full situation, but the fact he's just come into the side, I feel like we can ease off the fact that that's why he's not played the full 90. Then you come into the thought of, right, okay, but then in a double game week, is he going to be able to play 2 games in 4 days? Like if they win against Accrington, which I assume they would, you're not going to Holloway's not going to want to change the team up. I don't think he's that sort of manager. So you then go to Notts County. Well, they have Notts County at home. I think Tafazoli would play again, and you're looking at someone who's averaging 7 clearances a game, hasn't finished the full 90. You could easily expect those numbers to add up a little bit more, and then you're potentially looking at 2 bonus points for the clearances a game. So you've someone here who could be a solid 8, 9, 10 point defender going into this per game, going into this game week. I think is a very solid option.
Yeah, nice. Do you have anyone else more to contribute to, or should we go into midfielders? That's I feel like where you can get some real good debates.
Yeah, I think I want to go forward. Yeah, again, it's
Yeah.
the Championship clean sheets. I just don't really see where they come outside of Coventry and
No.
maybe Middlesbrough. Alfie Jones is another, but I feel like I'd rather Bryn and Thomas than Jones and Rushworth.
Yeah,
So
completely agreed.
I feel like I don't really want to bring Alfie Jones into the conversation too much, but I do think he's a good option as well.
Yeah, no, completely agreed. And I kind of was suggesting we move on because I'm assuming that we're both going in with 2 defenders.
Yes. I feel like okay, we did balls up a little bit this week, so I am going 2-2-2, and I imagine you are as well. And we don't really have much.
I want a forward that's not Burstow captain. So yeah,
Yeah. So I feel like we've done that to ourselves, but I have been a fan of the 2-2-2. It's been my go-to formation, so I probably would have done it anyway. I'm going to build. I feel like we both said beforehand, we're going to tell you our teams as if Burstow and Bolton weren't picked, and we're just going to have to deal with that ourselves that we did pick them. Who's the first midfielder that comes to mind then for you?
Straight away for me, I feel like we have to focus on Sorba Thomas. I'm pretty sure you're going to go along with that as well. 9 appearances, 3 goals, 4 assists. I'm pretty sure his last 3 games have had a goal contribution in it, and he is just a shining light for a pretty impressive Stoke team, actually, but he really is the man that's performing this season.
Agreed. Yeah. Actually, looking back, those last 3 games he's been brilliant, and the game beforehand against QPR is the game that I suggested him on the pod, where he just got an
Yeah,
interception, very
yeah.
frustratingly. No, I agree. Solomon Thomas is going to be in my team most probably. I do like the matchups, Wrexham and Millwall. I know Millwall are off the back of that 3-0 win against West Brom, but the other home games they've had, they have conceded heavily. So I don't think it's, one game isn't necessarily a corner turned. Millwall have been better away, but I just can't ignore the fact that if you just look at their numbers, that they have given up pretty pretty big score lines. So I kind of want to get with the most attacking player against them. And similar to Wrexham, we know what their defense is like. So yeah, happy. I think Thomas sounds pretty good on that front. Anyone a little bit more out there for you?
Trying to not repeat myself with the Barry Bannon shout going into another double game week after I succeeded with him so well last time. But I am going to stay clear because I don't know, I'm just not too convinced. A player that recently transferred into his new side at Leicester, Jordan James, another really interesting player, high shot taker, gets decent points all round from interceptions as well, which we like. Last 2 games, he contributed 2 goals and 1 assist. And games against Portsmouth home and Hull City away certainly direct me towards him.
Agreed. Yeah, Jordan James was actually the next player I was going to talk about. I think, as you mentioned, his stats look good, and then you look at the opponents, Portsmouth and Hull ranking in the lower third, like for their kind of shots against stats. When you've got someone like James who does like to pick up the ball and have a go from range, get into the box, classic goal scoring midfielder. I feel like I want to be on him. He looks like Leicester's most dangerous player right now. So, and that's saying something when they have Fatawu who can score from anywhere. So, yeah, James really is catching the eye, and yeah, he's definitely in consideration for me this
Like,
week.
yeah, you go through the midfielders. There's so many ways you can word it to say this is the midfielder that I think you should go for. Like, you look at the early form of Mehmeti and Twine; they're really hard to ignore. Lewis O'Brien does really well with interceptions and actually has 3 goals and 2 assists. I remember mentioning him at the start of this season of how he's suddenly getting forward and taking more shots, and he is getting the reward for that. So another player that's really interesting there. There's just I just don't know. There's just so many midfielders of this mold where they're sort of all action, but they are in quite good scoring form. So it's really hard to narrow down where you want to go for here.
Yeah, it's tough because, yeah, like you say, there's a lot of similar-esque players, and I feel like it's so easy to just pick the wrong one and kind of just get a bit stuck on it. I remember suggesting Imran Loser the other week, and he, after like 2 really good back-to-back games, didn't really do much, even though Watford scored twice, and it kind of just goes against the narrative that he was so influential for them in fantasy points. The 2 Bristol City lads I think are interesting. They're almost in my no-go list right now because I
Yes.
just think Bristol City have just hit a wall. I was actually looking at their opposition, and they play Southampton away. Southampton at home, and I know we've just moved on from defenders and, and goalkeepers, but that one was flagged up to me as a fixture that a few weeks ago I'd be there like, get Bristol City players in your team. I would almost argue get Southampton defenders in your team.
Yeah,
Like
for sure. For sure.
I just don't really like that Bristol City team. They've always been really early on in the season found out how they how they were going to set up and play, and yeah, Twine and Messi just can't. Well, we know what they're like from last year as well. They need those chances. They're going to take lots of shots, but they're not the most prolific. So the moment those shots stop coming, the goals stop coming for them.
And it's the same reasoning why I've stayed clear for Isaac Price as well. I know his points were so heavily weighted from the first 2 opening games for 14 points and 16 points. But since then, West Brom's goals have really dried up, and you just don't get the reward from him. I still find it amazing that he's 5.9% selected. I get they might quite friendly fixtures. Well, maybe not so friendly. Like they've got Preston North End, who we've talked about Iverson. Like they are quite good defensively, and then Watford away, who are just a really strange side yet again this season. Their results don't really make too much sense to me. But he's just another exciting player that I just stay away from, especially with double game week when I really need to make points up in the midfield.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think midfield is such an interesting one because it feels like that's where like all the points are coming from, but when you actually kind of step through it, um, they're
Not
so
consistently though.
yeah, they're so skewed. Like, it's really hard to kind of nail it. Like you feel like if you pick the wrong player in midfield, you're missing out on potentially like 10, 15 points over a double game week.
Yeah, exactly. Where I'm really confident of picking a player that will get me 10 points in the double game week or like 12 points in the double game week because there's so many midfielders out here that consistently score 5-6 points a week. But that's not what we're really needing in this double game, especially if we're essentially a one man down already. We really need something else.
Exactly. And an interesting, well, I guess someone we haven't spoke about. We haven't spoke about the League One fixture yet. So the League One double game week is Reading versus Northampton, and it's at Reading, which obviously then brings to light everyone's favourite League One midfielder from last year, Lewis Wing,
Yeah.
is on a double game week. Not as high a point scorer this year. Like he's hit double figures twice. He's had a couple 9 points, but he also hasn't had the consistency of last year. Um he's had like two 2-pointers, a 1-pointer. Like his he's basically had points all over the place. Like it's not like his last year where you felt like you were getting 5-6 points from him minimum. This year, like you generally don't know what you're getting from him. But Cardiff away, like, you've got someone here who basically gets an interception a game. And we also know that Cardiff do have these games where they're not like as defensively sound. They can almost try and play for the 1-0, or they can, as we saw last week, can kind of go all out and have to win 4-3, and then you feel like anything Reading do, um, you'd expect Wing to kind of be involved in, at least, or near enough involved in a goal contribution, even though it has been a while for him. He's still kind of expecting that. And Northampton at home is a game where um, even though Northampton have been improved recently, Reading are struggling a bit. It's still something you'd expect Reading to kind of take control of a bit more, and that's where you'd expect Wing to hit those key passes, hit those shots on target, hopefully hit the goal or the assist and get points on that front. So he's definitely not out of consideration, but I just don't think he's as exciting and as must-have as he once was, especially last season. It really does feel like he's so hit and miss right now that it's almost not worth the risk, even though there is 2 games to play for.
Yeah, and that's the thing. If it was last season, I'd quite happily sacrifice the championship picks and focus in on Wing and put him in my team. We did kind of call this last season though, of how we were so impressed that he was able to consistently get good points, and then actually more than consistently get high points as well. But we did sort of suggest. I remember suggesting. Well, yeah, I think you suggested that, especially from his goals, they're just from long shot attempts. And how repeatable is that in fantasy? We need to get in good shooting opportunities, not opportunities where he's 30 yards out, 25 yards out, and he's just in a vein of form where he's able to find the back of the net from there. And it just seems this season it's just not quite hitting the same, which is fair enough. It's not a sort of knock on him as such. It's just that that approach to scoring goals isn't repeatable.
Yeah. Obviously, it's fantasy pod, and I'm trying to keep it fancy, but it is an interesting point there where who was their manager at the start of last season? Was Ruben Selles, obviously picking up really good record with Reading. A lot of that was to do with the fact that you had players like Lewis Wing who could score from 30 yards, and we knew that wouldn't keep up, and all of a sudden it isn't keeping up, and now Reading look terrible. And I don't think, as much as I don't think Noel Hunt is as good a manager. It's also, I just don't think the the metric, don't think the
Yeah.
luck's continued as well. And then Sellers has obviously gone on and had some difficult jobs, and you're there yeah, it's interesting what happens when you don't have a midfielder who can score from 30 yards every other week. So it's obviously not that straightforward, but it's definitely an interesting thing, I
But
think, to
no,
think.
no, it is. It's still an important thing, especially when you're just focusing on the player on his own merits for fantasy. Actually, just looking where they having their shots from, especially like for
Exactly.
strikers, I want them not even just inside the box. I want them centrally, just outside the 6-yard box. Like ideally, that was like the perfect place for it to be. With midfielders, if they can just be on the edge of the box or just inside the box, perfect. It's when they're sort of venturing outside the D 25 yards, I'm not so confident in this one.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, speaking of forwards, then, should we move into the front line? And obviously, just one player for us to pick. But if we did have that second slot, we'll imagine we had two. Which Coventry forward are you taking? I think is the best place to start, because there has to be one, right?
There does have to be one. I've like for consistency, I'd want Haji Wright, but then just Thomas Sante and just the sort of form that he's in, where I really didn't expect him to be where he is. He's just such an exciting prospect as well. I
They
don't
have the
like,
same.
and all this is it Haji Wright that's on penalties.
Yes, I'm pretty sure he is, and they have the same goal contributions in 8, but
Yeah,
Haji Wright is all goals, whereas Thomas Sante is 5 goals, 3 assists. So if they're on the same contributions, I want the goals. Obviously, Thomas Sante is he's off the back of a really good game. But you like the argument you can make with Asante is um you've got 2 games there where he's hit 15 and 16 points, and then he's never hit double digits again. Haji Wright has also only hit double digits twice with a 13 and a 15 points. Haji Wright also has 2 1-point games and a 2-point game. So he has a low floor, whereas Asante has 2 2 point. They're both very similar. Like, there's
yeah, they
literally
really
nothing
are.
you can draw between them. I've always been Haji Wright truther, so I'm gonna stay with Haji Wright personally. But listen, you could like I fully get if that's not the narrative for some other people.
Yeah, and just before we move on to other players, the other commentary player that I really want to sort of get into this narrative as well is Ephraim Mason Clark. He was back fit for their last game, and then obviously with the international break, I expect him to be back in that lineup. Another really exciting player that sort of is more creative than goal scoring, but has that goal scoring knack to him as well. If we'd had more data from him and he hadn't missed those games to injury, then he'd definitely be a player that I'd almost weigh more on than Haji Wright and Thomas Sante, but I just don't think that can be the case just yet.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good thing to point out. It also just kind of shows how they've kind of dealt with injuries through this season. Mason Clark comes back and it allows Thomas Asante to play off of Haji Wright, a role that Torp had been playing before he was out injured. Ellis Sims is starting to play more minutes. Torp was actually on the bench last time out and didn't play, so like he's not completely out of the question going into this week. Um, Definitely a team where you like potentially keep an eye on the lineups, because certainly they're making that, because they're so out of sight in games, they're able to rotate their team and make the changes, and
Yeah,
it does mean you're not getting the full 90 out of everyone, but at the same time it's like they're still creating so many chances that in those 70 minutes most of them are playing, they're getting more chances than people are in their 90 minutes. So yeah, I think that's something to keep an eye out on. But yeah, definitely also agree on the Mason Clark front that maybe in a few weeks he might be the go-to one.
I'll throw up another different player for you. It kind of goes against what, well, for one of the games of when we were talking about Middlesbrough's defence, what about Jack Clark for Ipswich? I believe he's on 4 goals in his last 5 appearances. I'm really looking at putting an Ipswich player in there. Like, they do have exciting players. I think that second fixture against Charlton's pretty ideal. I know more people are going to weigh in on Philogene just because of the hat-trick that he scored a few weeks ago, and I believe he's on just one more goal than Jack Clark, but Clark's just such a quality player, and he gets the key passes as well, which I think is important for those extra bonus points. Just a different person to look at here.
Interesting. I would say the concern there is minutes. He's only started one of the last 5.
Yeah.
Like,
their squad is really stacked. It's kind of one of those it's one of those players where I'd be willing to put a punt on him if it was just the one game, because then you know whether he's starting or not.
Exactly. Like over 2 games, I wouldn't expect him to start both games. I would, you'd imagine if anyone's going to start 2 games, I'd imagine it's probably going to be Hurst and Philogene, and then you've got Smolix and Waller-Egley to kind of compete with, Clark, Azon. They've got McAteer on the bench, Chuba Rakpom. Like, there's a lot of options, and I just feel like with someone like Clark, even though, like, you're right, he's like quality operator at this level, has the goals going for him. The fact that even with that record, he hasn't been getting the starts.
Agree. I almost feel like he's in the wrong team. Fantasy-wise, at least, I want him to be one of the star players for a good team, not a really good player in a really good team. Even though they're not performing well, like their team, their squad on a whole is really good.
Yeah, I kind of want Sunderland Jack Clark for fantasy rather than Ipswich Jack Clark.
Yeah, essentially.
But yeah, it's definitely an interesting one to raise. Forward is an interesting position. One player I was looking at, but 2 tough games. Definitely probably puts him on the side. Yang Min Hyuk for Portsmouth has back-to-back goals. I did see the goal against Middlesbrough. I was watching a bit of that game, and to be fair, the keeper probably should have saved it, but he's still getting like good involvement further up the pitch. Had a goal against Watford, so effectively it's it's 3 starts, 2 goals, and decent points, but he's got Leicester away and Coventry at home, so probably not going to fall back on that one. You've kind of like the QPR forwards were kind of in fashion a few weeks ago, and I don't know if they are right now. Like, we were all debating which QPR ones to go for, and since then it's kind of quieting down a bit. Kone's still been doing decent. He got a goal in the last game. Saito, who was one of my picks, has quietened off. Varel's quietened off. Paul Smith's low picked, but he's got a couple goals to his name. I feel like they almost fall into that double game week rotation issue. I think that's what we hit last time. They have a lot of options, so they really can just rotate that whole front 4, and then we're hitting the minutes issue on QPR. Even though Millwall at home, Swansea away are definitely not pretty good fixtures given the game week.
Yeah, no, definitely. Sorry, just looking there, I've got one more forward that is kind of similar. Is Adam Armstrong. Can't believe we've not really mentioned him this season on the pods, but it has been quite a slow start. He scored 4 games ago off the bench, and then since then has returned back to the lineup. So he's now 3 goals in his last 4 games. Should have been 4 and 4, but he did miss a penalty. So obviously not ideal. He got the -3 points there, but then he did get an assist, so he cancelled himself out there. But just a player that I just want to get behind, a player that's more than like to start for just a strong team, especially in the double game week. I think the fixtures are pretty ideal. Swansea City at home first up. I've backed Swansea City's defenders quite a few times this season, and it's just not gone well. So why not go the other way and try my luck there? Also done that with Bristol City, and they have Bristol City away. So just a real clinical finisher who doesn't need too many chances. So you're not going to get too many bonus points on shots on target. Obviously, if he scores, you get the one shot on target anyway. But from his shots on target, he is lethal.
Yeah. I think definitely definitely an interesting one.
It's just a shame I don't have two strikers because I could. These are the chances that I would take.
Yeah, exactly. It's very frustrating that we're in this situation. Looking at some of the other strikers, like there isn't. I don't know if it's the fixtures or if it's, like what I'm really thinking. There's not too much really screaming out to me other than that. Um,
No.
I feel like at this stage of the season as well, you're kind of getting to a point where I'm like, okay, like we kind of know a bit of what teams are like, and some of the teams I thought were going to be better than they are, like have been a bit poorer and not fancying picking their players for. Yeah, I don't really want to touch like Norwich and Josh Sargent right now. Um, Literally haven't. I don't think we even spoke about Sheffield United players on the pod. Like,
No.
Leicester. We spoke about Jordan James. Fatawa would be the striker option. In this case, I just kind of preferred James, so I feel like bringing forward Fatawu is almost a bit redundant, even though I think he's quality. Um, just trying to look at some of the other teams, like Charlton, team we kind of back defensively. Hull, McBurney's been really good, but they've got two tough fixtures. They're away to
Yeah.
Birmingham and home to Leicester. I don't really want to go against that.
No.
Um,
For how good a player is, it gets to a point where the fixtures outweigh how well a player's play, and even if they are quite individual to how their team play, it just becomes too much there.
exactly. And then it's like, oh, Middlesbrough have the Sheffield Wednesday away game, where um, they have been pretty poor at home, and they're obviously off the back of that 5-0 to Coventry. But it's the second game of the two, and Middlesbrough are another big culprit for rotation up front. They have so many options. It's like, do you take Conway, who has we know is a good player, but hasn't really hit the level of points. You could gamble on Hansen, but he's not really getting the minutes in. Same with Strelic, like Whisker, Bergsorg, Sene. Like there's so many options there for Middlesbrough who they're just rotating that you're not really getting the benefit of having them in your team if they're playing 61 game and then 30 the next. Over 2 games, you're just getting effectively one game, so it feels a bit pointless. So a lot of teams, it's like you're trying to avoid that side of it, I'd say, which is coming in up front.
No, definitely. No, I think that rounds off the forwards picks quite nicely. We've probably feel like we've gone over it quite quickly, but I just don't think there's too many safe options, so we say that I can see potential of scoring in both games, and that's essentially what we're wanting. I don't really want to pick a forward that gets 9 points for scoring one goal in one game and then just getting points for minutes in the other game. It's just a waste of an opportunity there.
Yeah, and probably should mention, just in case. Well, I mean, if you open the app, you will be aware. Aaron Drinnan's injured, so we can't even bring him forward. So he is on a double game week.
I've already checked.
Yeah, he's on a double game week. He would have been well in the team, but he's injured. So God, Swindon are not having. I mean, they're not having good luck with strikers. I guess if you want to go the Swindon route, though, there is a very good alternative in Ollie Palmer, um, who is now playing instead of Drennan, who himself was playing instead of Smith. So Ollie Palmer, probably the shout in League Two. I'm not anti Notts. I just think Swindon, just with their goals, are just the better option in that double game week game. And the ready. Actually, just before we do, I've just remembered. This is really bad. Jack Marriott's on a double game week for Reading, and bear with me, he has scored in 5 straight games. He scored against Barnsley, Orient, Stockport, Mansfield, and Reading. Not only has he scored in 5 straight games, he has scored 5 of Reading's last 7 goals. He scored the last 3 or 4. It's the Cardiff away game that puts me off, but it's certainly not out of the question. It's not just the Cardiff away game that puts me off; it's the fact that we're both idiots and we have one striker this week. So,
Yeah.
unfortunately, that is. But yeah, do want to get Jack Marriott in that. He is definitely a good option if you're looking away from the Championship. If you want to overlook the Cardiff away game and that weird Northampton resurgence in form, he's still a good option. He's just scoring, so get on that train if you want to.
Do you have a 0.1 player in mind for this week?
I did, but I actually want to change my mind on who I was going to pick.
Okay.
Because he's 0.2 now, and
Yeah.
I don't exactly know when he switched. So
But rules are rules.
Exactly. We're recording the pod, and he's 0.2, which means I don't think I can technically get him in. Ryan Tafazoli was going to be my 0.1.
Yeah, I thought so when you were mentioning him.
He annoyingly has changed. Do you have one in mind while I quickly double check?
Check. It shouldn't
get.
So I've gone for Ricardo Pereira of Leicester City. Bit of a strange start to the season for him. Only 1 clean sheet in 6 appearances, but he does have 2 goals. So ideally they've actually happened when they haven't kept a clean sheet. So I almost feel like those goals count towards clean sheets. So I'm going to say that he had 3 clean sheets. All right.
Nice.
He has a decent average points total of 5.5, which is one of the highest in the Championship for defenders, especially sitting at 0.1%. And I believe I definitely remember him being on penalties before. I don't know if he is on this season, but there's just another way of him getting some more bonus points there. I just think the Portsmouth-Hull combo is really ideal, and we're at that point of the season, especially when we're going into a double game week in the Championship. It's really hard to find too many attractive 0.1% picks. So I really had a short list, and it didn't take me too long to decide on Pereira.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I do kind of like that one. I did have a backup in mind, but I kind of opted for him a few weeks ago, and it didn't pay off. No.
Yeah.
So someone who had in mind, and the logic would probably just still stand was Alex McCarthy for Southampton, where I just think they're getting better, and I just feel like they will hit a clean sheet eventually. And their fixtures against bear with me 1 second while I just get him up. Their fixtures are Swansea at home and Bristol City away. I think that's like quite favourable in this double game week. I kind of spoke earlier about how Bristol City have kind of stopped scoring a bit. I don't think they scored more than 1 goal in a game in their last like 5 or 6. Swansea kind of similarly, like they're good for a 1-1. Annoyingly though, it comes into the fact that they're not like neither team are overly blunt, so the clean sheet just kind of isn't there. But I'm kind of weighing into the fact that I just think Southampton are a better side than they have been at the moment, and it would kind of solve my goalkeeper my goalkeeper dilemma
Conundrum.
for the week. The other option I'm weighing up is going back to Lewis Gibson for Preston.
Yeah.
And he's 0.1% picked. We obviously know a lot about him anyway. And he's kind of the sort of centre back we also like talking about. He's the central centre back in a back three. We used him playing on the left hand side. He's kind of playing in the centre at the moment for Preston, which means clearances. He has 56 clearances in 9 games, so that is just over 6 clearances a game. His tackles are decent as well. They're over 1 a game. Blocks are fine. It's also the 4 clean sheets that Preston have. They really do kind of suffocate teams. And I know I kind of said earlier that I maybe wasn't convinced with Everson, but then I'm like, inviting pressure on just leads to clearances. The other thing is in 3 of his 4 last games, Gibson has got 9 points. So he's hit 2 bonus points as well as a clean sheet. In fact, he's hit bonus points in every game this season. The only time he ever got 2 points though was recently to Hull, where they conceded twice. They've only conceded 2 goals in the game twice this season. They're a good side, like they're a solid side at the back.
They are solid sides.
Yeah, and West Brom away, West Brom are off the back of that horrific game against Millwall. They've also been struggling a bit in front of goal. They did start the season well in terms of results, but if you look at like their their last few games, they failed to score at Millwall, and then since then, in fact, all season they've only scored more than 1 goal in a game once. They failed to score in 2 of their games this season, so it's not out of the question that Preston can go there and keep a clean sheet. And the other game is Birmingham, who are kind of hitting similar issues, especially away from home, where they're just a bit blunt. So yeah, Lewis Gibson is actually the keeper I'm going to take. The defender I'm going to take as my sub point pick.
Obviously, to keep a clean sheet, like
To
what you
keep
did
a
there.
clean sheet. Yeah, exactly. Do you want to quickly run me through then what your team actually looks like at the time of recording?
Yeah, and after all we've kind of spoke about, I think you actually might be a little bit surprised. I've gone for Rushworth in goal.
Fair enough. Yeah.
And I'm doubling up that with Bobby Thomas as my defender alongside Ricardo Pereira as my 0.1 pick. My 2 midfielders are Sorba Thomas and Jordan James. And up front, I have Adam Armstrong and, of course, Mason Burstow, who has had 2 shots in the 90 minutes, returned 4 points, and with my fantastic captain pick, has got me 8 points there. So really happy with that one.
Absolutely brilliant. Yeah, it's in the 90th minute. I don't think the 4 times whistle has gone just yet. So there's still a chat.
The hope's gone though.
The hope, the hope has gone. Yeah, they 4 minutes of added time left, and
really, I genuinely need him to score maybe a hat trick to offset another forward scoring 3 goals in 2 games.
He's got. Oh, Bolton have just equalised. I don't know who.
Wow,
crazy.
This is like live. This is like commentary on a podcast. I don't know if this has really been done before, but
live suspense it, and I would tell you who scores the goal once I find out. It's literally must have just gone in on the app. I'll quickly run for my team though while we wait. In goal, I'm going to swap. Well, seeing as I'm going to take Tafazoli out for my sub point pick, I'm going to go with Connor Ripley in goal for Swindon, and then Bobby Thomas and Lewis Gibson are my back 2. And I've got the same midfield as you. I've got Jordan James and Sorba Thomas, and then up front I do have Haji Wright along with Mason Burstow, who's locked in for 4 points. But if they would just tell me who scored this ball, it's Sam Dolby. The disappointment. It's not even a Burstow assist. It's a Cozy Dewberry assist. But at least the Bolton team pick goes up to 3 points. So, yeah. Who is your other team for the week?
Trying to not make it a Coventry City special episode, but it's really hard to not go for them. I have already selected them 3 out of the 5 times possible, but I'm actually not too concerned about that, as I just I've been taking advantage of them when things have been going well. So if I've only got 2 chances left, why not use them for one of the double game weeks, especially when there's no one really else jumping out at me, and I don't have 2 options in League 1 and League 2. So yeah, I think I'm going to have to go Coventry here.
I'm also going Coventry, same kind of reasons. I like the two teams I fancied the most this week are Coventry and Swindon, and I've used both of them twice. So I feel like while Coventry are on the form, they are huge 9, 11, 13 point candidates, and you just kind of have to take them. And Yeah, I'm hoping that Coventry can double up with a Bolton win, as it's 2-1 Bolton and Cozy Adubri has just scored, which is absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah, this is fantastic. But Bursto, if you fancy getting on the end of one of these things, that would be even better. Thank you.
Is it Mason Burstow assist? We've got
Oh,
to take
what a
it.
captaincy! Come on.
We just have to take that. It's absolutely unbelievable.
Maybe we should do this more often and record an episode when we've got players locked in, so we've got someone on the line whilst recording.
I'm just there like, okay, we've kind of, it's not like Burstow has kind of actually outscored a few people that I've had on double game weeks before, and at least Bolton have won, providing they hold on for the next 60 seconds, which will take. I'm just imagining the scenes if that was a Burstow double.
Yeah, I feel like we've been robbed of something there.
I feel like we would have absolutely lost it, and a Burstow double would have been one, and he would have ended up being one of the top forward picks of the week, and me and you would have been geniuses, and everyone would have been absolutely baffled as to why we had picked him.
Yeah, I can only imagine the listeners were laughing when we brought this up earlier on, but now surely we've got your respect.
Yeah, the pressure's on now, everyone, because our striker already has 7 points going into the weekend.
Well, I'm looking at mine with 14 points, so bring it on.
And we already have a team locked in for 9 points with an away win. So yeah, you've got to come and take us on now as Iain sits top of the table going into the weekend. Yeah, I think that brings us to the end then. I think it's been a weird one. Yeah, I think a bit more normality next week. We can't record during the next Thursday game, unfortunately, because I will be at it. Well, maybe we could, but yeah, I think that'll be next week a bit more normality back to this. But this has been good. This has been fun. Yeah, thank you everyone for listening and bearing with us during this time. Do follow us on the socials. We're on X at FVBD Pod. We are on Bluesky at Football Breakdown. We'll give you a reminder of our teams going into the weekend. Do keep an eye out for the usual, early lineups or those changes. We'll also keep an eye out too, and if we need to change our teams, we will let you know. Yeah, thanks again for listening. Thank you, Iain.
Thank you, Matthew.
And take it easy.